Hi, it's Matthew Lippert back here again with another video. I've got a 2015 Chrysler Town & Country minivan. It has a 3.6 liter V6 engine. The AC isn't working quite as well as I would like it to work, so did a little research. This van does not have an orifice tube in the AC to serve switch from a low to a high pressure. It has what is called an expansion valve. I have a new valve here, and a little valve like this, and I'm gonna tear some things off here and see if I can get this thing replaced. The AC blows cold going down the road, but once I stop, I'm sitting still. It doesn't blow real cold, and it's going to be a long, hot summer if I can't get this blowing cold. And I spend a lot of time in my van, so you know, it's nice to have that AC working while I'm sitting in that van for long periods of time, doing some paperwork, creating orders, etc. But I'm going to start by all of this stuff here has to come off. Of course, this you have your three tabs here to open this up, the air box. You have a screw right here to loosen up this breather tube. This one comes off, and this will come out. And I also take a bolt off right here to remove the power steering reservoir, get it out of the way so I don't risk dumping it out. Once I get this off, I'll come back and show you where I'm at going forward. Okay, I've got this pulled off. Just FYI, the nut right here for the power steering reservoir takes a 13mm wrench. Then the air filter comes out. Set it off to the side. Then this box here, it just pops out. There's no bolts or nothing on this. It just has some grommets in there. Sits in there. It just pops out. Has to wiggle it around this little hose here. Then it pops out, and then it's out of the way. All right. Now I have to take this off because the first thing I have to do is open up the valves here. I got one valve here, and I got one valve. The low side is way down in there. Let me see if I can get my light out here. See if we can. Whoops, that's not a light there. It's way back in there. There. Right there's the low side port, and the high side port is over here. So I had to take all that stuff off just to get to that high side port. Okay, gotta get the AC drained out of it, and then we'll locate that expansion valve and go from there. So I'm doing this the right way. I've got my snap-on AC machine hooked up to it, and it's sucking the refrigerant out. Hook the high side up there. I took this top engine cover off to give me a little bit more room. I hooked the bottom, the blue side, the low side, back up in there. Once I get the refrigerant sucked out of here, I'm going to put a blanket, old blanket over top of this engine because I just got home a little bit ago and it's still plenty warm. The expansion valve is right back in there. There's a little nut. You can see it right there. That nut has to come off, then that little fitting with the two lines pops off, and the expansion valve is in behind there. So once I get all this refrigerant sucked out and I get that, I start to pop that off, I'll come back, I'll tell you what size nut that is, etc., etc. Okay, I pulled the expansion valve off. I pulled that socket out. I just use a 1/2 inch. It's 13mm. But a lot of times you can use a 1/2 inch in place of a 13mm. I got that popped off of there. And now there's two bolts in the middle of there. I've got to figure out what sizes they are. And I'll be back in a little bit when I figure that out. And we'll pop that off. This is a T27. Let me get this light on here. This is, those two screws there are T27 torque screws, star wrenches, whatever you want to call them. See, there it is right there. My little 1/4-inch mini set from Kimball Midwest has all those. So I've got them broke loose. Now I'm gonna go ahead and spin them out by hand, and then I'll pull that expansion valve out, and then we'll start with our new washers and get it set to go back in. Okay, here's the 2 expansion valves setting side by side. I'll have to put that new stud in the new one on the right. And then, just to give you a look-see in here, there is the port that it goes to. On those two pipes that stick out, there's some washers on there. And I'll pull those washers off. I got some new ones that came with this expansion tube. I'll put those new washers on so we have a good seal. And there's also a couple of washers on the other end of these pipes. Let me see if I can turn this around. Right there you can see the washers. I'll put new washers on there as well so everything has a good seal. I'll come back in a little bit. Here's my little tool. I'm going to get the washers off. I'm not going to video while I'm taking them off. I'd like to, but there's just not enough room. One of the downfalls to having big hands is you just don't have room sometimes. I just wanted to show you the tool I'm going to use. I'll reach in there behind those washers, pull them off with this pick, and then I'll slide the new washers on. Okay, I put the new washers on. Let's see if I can get you a shot of them in there. Put the new washers on in there as well. Just to give you an idea, here are the 4 washers I took off. They're dirty. They're definitely worn. This is why you always want to replace these types of washers when you have these things apart. Now I'm going to try to get my big hands in there and put this new expansion valve. I've got the stud into it, and the washers are already on both pipes. So now I'm going to take these 2 star-headed bolts and put this thing in there and see what we can do. Okay, I got the new expansion valve in. It was a bear. The problem is the pipes that it affixes to is stationary, but the little plate that the 2 screws screw into isn't stationary. It moves a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. But the screws aren't long enough, so you've got to get back in there, hold it back with one hand while you're trying to get one of the screws started with the other hand. And with my big paws, there's just not much room back in there, but I finally got it. It took me about 20 minutes after I dropped both the screws and dropped the expansion valve, but I finally got it. Now I'm going to put the hose assembly back on there, tighten that up. And then I'm going to hook my vacuum pump up to it and evacuate it, and then I'll recharge it. So I got those hoses bolted back up. I went ahead and got me a 13 millimeter because, you know, like I say, when it's a 13 millimeter, you can use a half, but it's a little bit snug. And I had to play with it a little bit to get the nut out of the 1/2-inch socket. I didn't want to be stuck back in there trying to have to fight with that socket to get it off that nut. So I went ahead and got me a 13 millimeter socket. That made it a whole lot easier. Like I said, now I'm going to go ahead and hook my vacuum pump up and evacuate this thing for about 45 minutes since it was opened up. Okay, I got my vacuum pump hooked up to it. You can see, I think you can see that. Yeah, you can see that little bit of, looks like steam come out of there. It's pulling some moisture and stuff out of that system. I'll leave this thing on there for about 45 minutes. I'll pull it clear down to where it's 30 inches of vacuum. Then I'll hook my snap-on machine back up. The reason I do this is the compressor in the snap-on machine is about $800. I can get those little cheap vacuum pumps for $150 to $200. So when it's running for 45 minutes, I'd rather let that run than let my high-dollar snap-on compressor run. Just it's an economic decision for me. I'm gonna go ahead and let this run for about 45 minutes, run down to AutoZone and get me a turn signal light. I had a turn signal light starting to go out, so I'll go get that. I'll be back later on. Well, I got that van all back together, got the AC recharged, everything's blowing pretty cold. It was starting to get dark, so I didn't do a final video, but this is the final video. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section below. Make sure you go ahead and like this video. Feel free to share this video with anybody you think it might help. And do me a favor, subscribe to this channel. Hit that little red bell. You'll be notified every time I post a new video. I hope you like it, and hope to see you down the road.